by the round of applause. Nobody's got a ticket lately. But just real quick, I know y'all have got a special guest here with us today, and I just wanted to thanks for the opportunity to come down with Rotary, meet some old friends. I got to break bread with Mr. Flick back here, who was a big supporter of a program that was very dear to me back in my early career, the DARE program, and Mr. Flick was always in our corner whenever we needed some help, and I had a chance to speak to him, and I appreciate that today, and everybody else in the group that has helped me along throughout my time here in Douglasville. For those of you that don't know me, I'm from right here. I'm a Douglas County High School graduate. Was one of those kids just sort of slid through school. Ended up in the Marine Corps by the grace of God for 4 years, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Hoorah! And came back at 21, went to work for Joe Wisnett, and I'm now celebrating my 25th year with the City of Douglasville Police Department, serving as your chief for about the past 5. Don't have to tell anybody in this room how much Douglasville's changed over the last couple of decades. It's continuing to grow. It's continuing, in my mind, to prosper. I feel that we're very fortunate, very blessed to have the fine group of public servants we have at the police department, not only at our city police department, but our county sheriff's department. I'm going to brag on one of my mentors, Sheriff Phil Miller, who I think has done an awesome job for our county, because I can assure you that we've had people in leadership positions down there that did not work with the city police department, like Sheriff Miller has made an effort to, and build those bridges and have us working together to fight crime together, and that's what our citizens deserve, is both of us pooling our resources and working together to keep us all safe. Crime trends in Douglasville, it's ever changing, from dealing with pawn shops and this so-called scrap gold that we're trying to get a handle on, and people's jewelry getting stolen, trying to keep track on that, copper getting stolen, air conditioning units getting stolen. It's a business for the criminals, just like it's a business to us to put them out of business as your law enforcement agency. Douglasville is very proactive in supporting their law enforcement. The Grand facility that we're working out of, that the citizens imposed a tax against themselves, is a statement, a tribute to that, of the support that we have for law enforcement here, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm going to hang around for the end of the meeting today, and if you have some questions concerning your business or your family that you'd like to direct my way, let's do it that way so we don't take away from our program. Just one quick note that's coming up that they may interlude into this a little bit, but one of my captains, Zach Artis, who is one of our patrol shift captains in charge of half our patrol division, actually leaves for China this Wednesday for 2 weeks because he is adopting a 4-year-old boy from there. And I know a lot of y'all been, we keep in touch with some of y'all, and some of y'all know, they said, well, maybe Chief, maybe you'd like, and being as I've got 6 kids, Starla's talking about a 7th, I better hold tight with what I got right now. But Judge Walker's choking. I'm playing, Judge. No, I think I've bagged my limit. So thank y'all, and like I said, if I can help y'all, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane, for the invitation just to be here today and to share about this most important subject. And I wish really I did not have to be here. I wish I didn't have to be here and to share this information. But the fact of the matter is slavery never ended. It never really ended. There's more slaves today in the world than ever before in human history. And we just want to share a little bit about this. My name is John Sullivan. My wife Angie is here. We're co-founders of the Global Relief Association for Crisis and Emergencies. And as I share over the next few minutes, you'll hear a little bit about what we do. But this is our main focus, and I just want to get right to it and share. There's a lot of information here. There's a lot of numbers, but we just want to demonstrate the vast scope and problem that we're facing in the world, and looking at our own area just as well. So really 3 major things that we want to do today, and that is simply define what human trafficking is, review some of the statistics of human trafficking, and then look at what action can be generated to foster the change that is really needed, and maybe even what you individually may want to be involved in. And so the first thing we do want to do is look at the scope of it, the scope of this problem, the scope of human trafficking. Homeland Security actually defines human trafficking as the act of recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, or obtaining a person for labor services or commercial sex acts through force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of exploitation, involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. It includes any commercial sex involving a minor. Two really major areas of this is through forced labor and through sexual exploitation. So that all comes from the Homeland Security website. Now, just looking at the international problem, and we're going to try to look at the international and narrow it down all the way to home here. Internationally, anywhere from, according to what website you look at, different statistics, anywhere from 10 to 30 million modern-day slaves exist in the world at any one time. After drug trafficking, human trafficking is tied with the illegal arms industry as the second largest criminal industry in the world. It's considered the fastest growing, generating $32 billion, that's with a B, $billion a year. 15.5 billion is generated in industrial countries alone, like the United States. So 600 to 800,000 people are trafficked across international borders each year. Up until 2 years ago, I really wasn't aware of all of this, and it was just kind of set in our lap, and we began doing our research and looking at the different countries in our own area, and these numbers were just staggering to us. The sheer numbers that's out there. 50% of transnational victims are minors. It's 18 or under. Estimated 2 million children exploited by global commercial sex trade. 100,000 minors in the commercial sex trade in the United States alone. It is a worldwide problem, as you can see. India, we know a little bit about India. It's a hub. New York Times calls it the hub for labor and sex trafficking. The Department of Justice says the U.S. is trending in the wrong direction. We have some friends over at an organization called Out of Darkness, and they've reported that the average life expectancy once trafficked is 7 years. 7 years once a teenage girl or boy is trafficked. 7 years. On down to the U.S., anywhere from 14,500 to 17,500 international people are trafficked into the U.S. annually. Victims come from 47 different countries. I know these are a lot of numbers, but we want to give the scope of what's going on here. The top 5 countries coming to the U.S., Thailand, Mexico, Philippines, Haiti, and India. 2011 reported incidents in the United States, 83% were sex trafficking, 12% labor trafficking, and 5% were designated as some other type. Now, this is just the U.S. Estimated anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 prostituted children in the U.S. 244,000 American children and youth are estimated to be at risk of sexual exploitation, including commercial sex exploitation. I think what Jennifer was talking about just a few minutes ago, that's those programs like that, like CORE, are so important because runaways, unaccompanied minors, make up the majority of at-risk youth, both for sexual and labor exploitation. Listen to this one, 89% of child victims of domestic sex trafficking left home. That is, they were either repeat runaways, that's 41.4%, or they ran away from a group home, foster care, DFAC, some other type shelter, 46.7%. So these are runaways for the most part. 40 to 70% of all street youth engage in prostitution to meet their basic needs, just to get food, shelter, sometimes the drugs that they need, and that sort of thing. So the population of street youth engaging in prostitution is equally divided between boys and girls, just almost right down the line. The Congressional Research Service report says that trafficking in persons for the purposes of exploitation is believed to be one of the most prolific areas of international criminal activity. 800,000 people are trafficked across borders every year. And so the U.S. estimates that some 2 to 4 million people are trafficked annually. I know these are big numbers, and they're hard to get a hold of when it's on this kind of a scale. It even says here that there are even higher estimates ranging from 4 to 27 million for a total number of forced or bonded laborers. As many as 17,500 people are believed to be trafficked into the U.S. each year. Okay, so that's we're seeing the international and the U.S. problem, and that's just simply a map produced by the Polaris Project that shows a concentration of human trafficking reports. This map reflects cases in which the location of trafficking was actually known. You can see the concentrations throughout the U.S. being up in the New England area, even you see the Atlanta area down through Florida, Miami, Los Angeles, up the West Coast. Is some the concentration of the trafficking, and so Georgia, coming closer to home now. National Human Trafficking Resource Center received 446 calls from Georgia. 103 were classified as high risk. They had evidence that this was really happening, really a trafficking case. 5,000 girls are at risk of being sex trafficked in Georgia, and on average, 374 girls are commercially sexually exploited monthly in Georgia. Average age of entry, 12 to 14 years old. This is against their will. Each month, approximately 12,400 men in Georgia pay for sex with a young woman. 7,200 of them end up exploiting an adolescent female. So we got one end the teenagers going into human trafficking. Then on the other end, we've got the men who provide the market. So this really kind of I think men's hearts have got to be changed, and we've got to address this issue with the teenagers just as well. You see there, Craigslist is the most efficient medium for marketing of sex. I know there's Backpage.com, which is very popular. On average, 100 juvenile girls are exploited each night in Georgia. So this all comes from FBI statistics, the Polaris Project, and all of them agree with that. So that's coming down to Georgia. Then on down to Atlanta. Atlanta has an international trafficking problem. We understand that. Like I said, I was not aware of it until just a couple of years ago, but minors recruited from the city are transferred to another county or state. Like I said, Atlanta was named by the FBI as one of the 14 U.S. cities with the highest rate of children used in prostitution. Atlanta Magazine has named Atlanta Sex City, the capital of sexual exploitation in the U.S. Approximately 65% of men who buy sex with young females do so in and around suburban and metro Atlanta, with 9% near the airport. Atlanta's got the highest number of trafficked Hispanic females just as well. Okay, so we went international to our state. We've got Atlanta in our own area. Just a quick Google search pulls up these names, and I'm sure these are familiar names to some of you guys in here. If you're familiar with the Candyman, that was back in 2011. He was sentenced to 17 years and required to pay restitution and register as a sex offender. 2012, Judge Emerson sentenced Stephen Lemery to 80 years in jail as he was convicted of human trafficking charges. And then just in this year, Demario Hillman, sentenced to 10 years in prison for trafficking minors. That happened on June the 7th, 2013. That's just three that jumped out to us when we were doing our research. And so we know it's here, and even talking to Captain Artis. The chief mentioned Captain Artis a few minutes ago. We're friends with Captain Artis, and of course the Atlanta Police Department, the Douglasville Police Department, and our Sheriff's Department certainly aware of all this going on in Atlanta and what goes on around here. And Captain Artis says that, it's like the Thornton Road. Thornton Road is kind of like a boundary, and Captain Artis said we're trying to beat it back at that point. And so we just, this is about awareness and knowing what's going on, and not really having our head in the sand, but understanding what's going on, and awareness. And types of sex trafficking in the U.S. And you can go on. Used to, it was on the street, out on the street. The girls or the guys would be out on the street. But now so much of it is internet-based. Like we said, Backpage.com, Craigslist, that sort of thing. But here is just things that go on, back toward Atlanta, bar and club operations. We won't go through every one of those, but you see them there, how trafficking manifests itself, and how it's been said it's been hidden in plain sight. It's there, but sometimes you really have to look at it. And what we want to do just for the next couple of minutes is just think about that, and how really to recognize it, how to recognize trafficking when it's going on, and if we come across it, to be able to recognize it. But this is a really good frame here, PowerPoint slide that points out even, of course, the massage parlors, hostess clubs, karaoke clubs, domestic strip clubs, gentlemen's clubs, brothels can be in homes, apartments, hotels, mobile home trailers. There's escort services, boat cruises. You see all of those there, all those different means through hotel-based, internet, private parties, street-based, truck stops. All those are potential areas that we know about. And so behavior or physical state. This is just becoming aware and recognizing it if we come in contact with it. And again, this is all off the Homeland Security website. It's not stuff we made up or dreamed up. It's there. So does the victim act fearful, anxious, depressed, submissive, tense, nervous, paranoid? Does the victim defer to another person to speak for him or her? Now understand, you really have to be looking for it, because it is hidden so well. Does the victim show signs of physical or sexual abuse, physical restraint, confinement, torture, any of those things? Has the victim been harmed or deprived of food, water, sleep, medical care, other necessities? Does the victim have few or little possessions? Can the victim freely contact friends and family? Are they free to do that? Are they allowed to socialize? Does the victim have freedom of movement? Has the victim or family been threatened with harm if the victim attempts to escape? We hear about these things on the news sometimes, and so as Atlanta kind of creeps out this way more and more, I hope not, but I'm afraid we'll see more of this. Work conditions, immigration status. Does the victim work excessively long, unusual hours? Is the victim a juvenile engaged in commercial sex? Have they told you this? Was the victim recruited for the purpose of and forced to engage in some other job? Were they promised something at one time but then given something else when they got here? Has the victim been forced to perform sexual acts or threatened with deportation or law enforcement action? Is the victim in possession of identification and travel documents? Or have they been taken away? That restricts their travel. So how do victims operate? How do they operate? And this is just with conversations I've had with different organizations like Out of Darkness, which is based out of Atlanta, Wellspring for Living, based down in Tyrone, Georgia. How do traffickers operate? Trolling the malls. This was a story told to me by actually he's the president of Out of Darkness. As we met just a few weeks ago to discuss different things, but he said he didn't know about Arbor Place, but certain Cumberland Town Center up through there. He said these traffickers would troll the malls. They're very selective a lot of times in who they call out, who they spot. But they'll find a teenage girl walking by herself, and they'll approach her and go up to her and say, "Man, you are looking really good today." And if she says, "Oh, thank you," and just goes on, they usually leave her alone. But if they come up to her and say, "Man, you are looking really good today," and she drops her head, bam. Got some self-esteem issues. Maybe she's been mistreated. Maybe she's open to a little more conversation or whatever, and then before she knows it, she's drawn in. This is just a very common, very easy thing to do in our malls. Of course, like I said before, they work on the internet, like Craigslist, Backpage.com. Pose as a taxi service. My son is a police officer in Atlanta, and they had an incident just a few weeks ago where there was these group of girls come out of a bar. They've been drinking a little too much, but a black SUV pulls up and says, "Where are you girls headed?" And he says, "I'm a taxi," and they say they tell him where they wanted to go, and he gave them a cheap rate, and some of the girls were kind of hesitant to do that. They didn't have a taxi sign. It was unmarked. Don't know about that. And one of the girls said, "Oh, it's fine. It's a cheap rate. He can take us up there." She jumps into the SUV, and the car takes off. The girls call the police, and they finally ran him down up around Peachtree Dunwoody Road, and he was a trafficker. She said, "We're already en route to Nashville to do some kind of business." So it's just things like that they do. It's things we need to be aware of, and even teach our teenagers, our young teenagers, even just to be careful. We don't want to make them scared of the world, but they need to be knowledgeable just as well. What can be done? Just simply, this is one of the things today, increase our awareness. We increase our awareness by sharing our knowledge with other people and what we know, what we've discovered, and just decide to make a personal commitment to even to educate ourselves and to maybe get involved with an organization or two. Like our organization we've just begun working in this area, but Out of Darkness, Street Grace, Polaris Project, you may have heard of these, Wellspring for Living. Getting involved with any of these organizations can help combat this problem of human trafficking. And that's what we do so much at Grace. Like I said, we're involved in prevention right now, primarily in Thailand. In Pattaya, Thailand, we actually have a child sponsorship program that is for very high-risk children in that part of the world. But at the same time, we're looking at doing things here in this area. I'll talk more about that in just a second. But this is what we do at Grace. We have a counseling office right out here on Goff Ridge Boulevard, and we send mission teams out to all those locations. And those locations really have been chosen carefully because of trafficking issues that are in those areas. That's primarily the reason we go there, whether it's sexual exploitation or labor trafficking. Just like we had a team come back just this past week from Burundi, Africa, and the problem there is labor trafficking. Because so many of the children are infected with HIV or AIDS, they're just used in labor trafficking and not in sexual exploitation so much. Toronto being the massive international city it is, it has a terrible human trafficking problem. Lviv is in western Ukraine. They have issues between the borders of Ukraine and Poland and that sort of thing. Chiang Mai is known for it just as well. Thailand, Pattaya, Thailand. Arequipa, Peru. Actually, we were near Arequipa a couple of years ago, and me and two other men I was with were accused of being traffickers. We were there on the mission trip, and we're talking to a group of teenagers about coming to an event that night at the local church, and some of the ladies come out and accused us of being traffickers and said we need to leave, and told all the kids they needed not to talk to us and that sort of thing. So it's an issue. That's southern Peru, down close to Bolivia. So child sponsorship program, already mentioned that. Awareness, we do awareness through events. We're just starting this, going to have a motorcycle ride this year, a 5K run, and there'll be various other opportunities just as well. Well, what we're in the process of doing now, just to let you know, there's some really good organizations in the Atlanta area who address this problem of human trafficking. So the meetings I've been having, the people I've been talking to, is where is the gap in service? What are we missing here? Because we don't want to duplicate something that's already going on. Where's the problem that nobody is addressing? And talk to a couple of different people, and they both say the same thing. It is, in the Atlanta area, it is minor boys. Boys under 18 years old. Nobody's wanting to touch it because this is what they tell me, you deal with something with the boys that you don't deal with the girls. And everybody wants to help the girls and rescue the girls and take care of the girls. And they need to be rescued. They need to be helped. They need to be in counseling, need to be taught life skills and all that goes along with it. But the boys that have been trafficked, have been sexually exploited, come out of that gender confused. They're questioning their gender identity. Also in that, you're going to get some transgendered individuals who have been trafficked, and nobody in the Atlanta area is dealing with that right now. That's a big issue. It's a very complex problem, and I understand that, but we just now beginning our research and talking with people about how to address this particular problem in the Atlanta area. So that's what we're doing. That's what Grace is about. And that's just our contact information, our website, and things of that nature. Angie and I are going to be here at the conclusion of the meeting. If you have any questions or anything, I'd love to take them. Yes, ma'am.
John, one of the things that I would share with y'all is the first trafficking case of boys was actually here in Douglas County for our state.
I'd heard that.
And it's also more difficult with boys because they're much more reluctant
Yes.
to tell that they have been victims of trafficking because there's such stigma
Mm-hmm.
to them having been victims. There's some expectation because they're male that they should be able to protect themselves.
Right. Exactly.
I think that it's important to understand that since 46% of this population are runaways and are coming particularly out of our foster care system, there's no question that we've got to recruit and train specialized foster parents to deal with teens. We have a huge need in our county for foster parents. We are so short with foster parents, particularly foster parents that will take teenagers. We tend to place them in group homes, and that's very high risk. When you have them in congregate care and they don't build those individual relationships, there's not as much protection, and they're so easily recruited out of those group home settings. So there's a lot we can do, but getting us moving in the right direction is really taking a lot of effort. I always have at least a child that I know is being trafficked, and sometimes there are ones I suspect or can't prove are being trafficked. And this has gone on since I started here in roughly 1990. So this is not something that's new. We are very close to the Fulton industrial area. That's a very high risk area for trafficking. So I just want you to understand that there are huge needs in our county.
Thank you, Judge. That's the same conversation that Jennifer and I had a while back about the need for good, solid foster homes, because a great percentage of these come out of the foster care system. Exactly right. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Question. You said their life expectancy is like 7 years?
Yes.
What do they do? Overdose?
Yes.
Victims of violence?
Right, exactly. exactly. One of the tactics of the traffickers is to get them hooked on some type of drug, so they have to keep coming back and to get their fix, to get their drug, to keep them going, exactly, and then they overdo it.
And then my second question is, do you have any statistics on the females that are involved in this? How many of this turns into a pregnancy with these children? Do any of these, do they abort it? I mean, how does?
I do not have those statistics. We could probably find those, but I don't have them readily available.
I would imagine they would probably, if they're forcing them to work,
Yeah.
they're probably forcing them to abortions.
Not necessarily. Some of them have children and they use the children
Yes.
to exert further control. So,
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
John, how much is the drug trafficking trade associated with this human trafficking? Are these the same people behind the scenes?
Sometimes, I've seen it, sometimes it is the case. It can go hand in hand. It's just part of the organized crime scenario. Yeah. Using the drugs, like's been said, to control the girls or the boys just as well. Yeah. Think about the sexual exploitation. You know, with a drug, you sell it once. But with a human, you can be over and over and over. It's very lucrative. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.